Do I doubt him? And I went further to say that, no, I don't, but it is one of those matters that we have to get a framework that allows us, like all of the other matters I've spoken about, to validate. I have not said the words that you...
But you remember how you disagree with him vehemently when he did the documentary about the tax that were training.
Yes, I recall. Yes, I recall.
And how he was taken to National Media Commission.
I led the government report to the National Media Commission.
And then subsequently you were seeking multimedia to apologize.
Yes.
And you thought that all those things will not fall under Article 1624, where it talks about the harassment that you said your government has complied with throughout the 4 years.
Chairman, no. Article 166 provides for the National Media Commission, membership now of 18, following the amendment by Act 527, which, among other things, if you take Article 167B, says to take all appropriate measures to ensure the establishment and maintenance of the highest journalistic standards in the mass media, including the investigation, mediation, and settlement of complaints made against or by the press or other mass media. Our report of multimedia and my good friend Manasseh to the National Media Commission was not out of hatred or dislike or malice. It was because we disagreed with the piece of journalism they had put together. And Chairman, if you observe the petition as we sent to the National Media Commission, we were profuse in even saying that we hold the station and its work in high esteem. But in this particular instance, we disagree with the work that they have done. I don't believe that reporting them to the NMC for adjudication amounts to harassment.
Mr. Chairman, the nominee is a lawyer, am I right? Your CV says so.
That is correct.
Practicing one or?
No, I'm not practicing at the moment.
I noticed that after the Supreme Court hearing, you are one of those who give the commentary, right?
That is correct.
And also the President representative at the Minister of Information.
That is correct.
So when you are giving that brief, how are you doing that to a private citizen, or in what capacity are you doing that?
Oh, I think the designation is very clear in that instance that I am the lead spokesperson for the President's legal team. I think that designation has been clearly announced. So when I speak there, I speak as lead spokesperson for the President's legal team, explaining the legal positions as have been advanced in court, explaining the view of the second respondent, and responding sometimes to comments that may have been made by the spokespersons for the petitioner's legal team.
So how do you then separate or differentiate your role in speaking for the state and speaking for candidate Akufo-Addo?
So, Chairman, how we do that is that very often we try to let our address be known. So there are many instances in which, during our briefs, we say that this is the position of the Akufo-Addo administration. In fact, I think my colleagues in the media will tell you that I am the one who profusely uses that expression, that the Akufo-Addo administration, and that there is one government of Ghana. This is the view of the government of Ghana. And then when we are speaking for the state as well, we're able to make that distinction. We try very hard to make that distinction clear.
Very last, who is Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, the chairman of Uber Microfinance?
That's my father. That's my father.
Oh, that's your father. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Do you want to ask any questions? Yes.
Okay. Chairman, Kojo, I knew about the Ghana Publishing Company some time back, and if you compare the current state of the Ghana Publishing Company, there's a clear, dramatic improvement. Are you able to tell this committee what has been your role in terms of contribution to the current state of the Ghana Publishing Company?
Chairman, so the company has a board and has a managing director. Our work at the ministry is limited to the kind of direction and facilitation we provide for the board and the managing director. So, for example, when they requested for some policy support in acquiring new equipment after board approval, we're happy so to do. And then when they came forward requesting for policy approval to go into security printing, we ferried same to cabinet, got the approvals, and then ensured that same happened as well.
Honorable nominee, the Information Service Department, clearly with the passage of time, in my view, cannot remain what it is. There should be some changes in the operation and the kind of staff we even employ there. What transformational efforts have you thought of or seeking to employ, if you are gracious enough to be given the nod by this committee?
Chairman, as I've mentioned earlier, we've already rolled out the ISD transformation program, which seeks to reorganize ISD into public education, RTI, research, and public relations. And we've already started work on that path. I've spoke about what we've done with the PROs, what we've done with research, and now what we seek to do with the public education division. In the second term, the idea is to go full throttle in execution.
Honorable nominee, I witnessed how you coordinated government response to COVID-19. How effective has it been, and are there any lessons going into the future?
I think one of the first lessons is that we can use our own to solve problems. You know that the president's team that is put together is made up of Ghanaians who are showing their abilities and their excellence in various areas. It is, for me, a major lesson that we don't always have to rely on the West to find solutions to our problems. I think another lesson is the urgency of the now in dealing with crisis situations like this, so that when London is burning, we don't sit and fiddle our thumbs as our leaders. Those will be two quick examples or two quick lessons that I draw from how the President has led this enterprise.
Honorable nominee, the President, in his wisdom, commissioned the national framework for the prevention of extremism and terrorism, which I'm sure you are well aware of. What specific steps do you envisage going into the future in terms of adoption and practicalizing this framework?
Well, in terms of my area, one of the things that is required is public conscientization. Because if the public is not aware of the risks of terrorism, etc., it may even be walking around in the community and they may not pick it up. Extremists sliding into communities, seeking to radicalize some of our population may not be picked up. So in my area, one of the big things is the level of public sensitization we can bring to bear so that people can know and participate in this.
Honorable Dobini, I recall, I think the 7th Parliament, I served on the Special Budget Committee, and there was a concern about monitoring of our media landscape, and that the National Media Commission was seeking to procure a particular gadget of substance to facilitate the monitoring activities. I don't know how far this has come, and if it is known to you, what has been done about it.
Yes, Chairman, the National Media Commission shared with me their costings for that project. Our expectation will be that as we get into a new budget cycle, we can advocate for them to be given those resources to execute this.
Chairman, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yes.
Chairman, I should thank you for the opportunity and also join you and colleagues in congratulating our colleagues. But just taking it from where the Honorable Muntaka ended, Oval Microfinance Limited, you have a legal background. And have studied corporate law. Is it not the case that in many instances that companies have to borrow, it is supported by two resolutions including shareholders' resolutions as a practice?
Chairman, I think it's the directors rather. There may be some exigent circumstances depending on ticket levels that may go up, but I think normally that's the director's job.
Yes, I say board resolution and shareholder resolution. I'm just finding out.
Chairman, my corporate law knowledge is that mostly it's board resolution, but depending if it's some extraordinary escalated matter.
You are a member of the Presidential Task Force on COVID, as you indicated.
Yes.
The government procured a number of PPEs. Is that the case?
Yes.
Can you just share with this committee how much it costs procuring a mask from your ministry? Just mask. How much did you pay for it?
Chairman, unfortunately, I don't have the per unit cost of a mask as I sit here before you. It's something I can find out.
You undertook procurement of PPEs. I'm aware of that.
Who, me personally?
No, the ministry and the Presidential Task Force and other stakeholders.
Yes, but I personally do not know the cost per unit of a mask. Perhaps the persons who are at the forefront of the procurement exercises will know.
So your ministry didn't procure masks?
Chairman, my ministry procured masks.
At what cost did you procure unit cost of the mask?
Chairman, I can fetch that and then make that available to the committee. I don't have.
Chairman would need that evidence of how much it costs procuring a mask for the state, so that we compare it to other procurement process. That's nose mask. Did you procure other PPEs other than the mask?
Not to my recollection. I recall that I think journalists and ISD staff at a point, some provision was made for them, but I don't have any further recollections.
All right, thank you. In an answer to an earlier question, you were emphatic that you took over affairs of the ministry in 2019. Your handing over records says it differently. Which should we rely on? I see that in a page, and I have it here. Handing over Ministry of Information 2020. There's a paragraph, and I quote Chairman with your indulgence. The ministry was under the leadership of Honorable Dr. Abdul Hamid since its rebirth in January 2017 to August 2018. He was succeeded by Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, August 2018 and not 2019 as you submitted to this committee.
Chairman, I think the appropriate date will be November 2018. November 2018.
Chairman, I'm not challenging him. This is an official document signed by you.
Yeah, Chairman, we've noticed that error, and the error comes about because the letter which is inserted into it.
So should I assume that there are many errors in your handing over notes?
No, Chairman, that is the only one that we cited.
Office, we cannot have that.
No, Chairman, that's the only one that we cited. And it is because the accompanying letter, which you will find has been attached to it, was signed separately from the document itself.
Chairman, these are not my words. I'm quoting from his own officially submitted report. And this is the record which is made available to us. What plans do you have for the Ghana News Agency? They still have problems with staff. They have problems with office accommodation. They have challenges. You know what Reuters is doing. They can link up with many of those major international links. What specific plans do you have for the Ghana News Agency?
Chairman, I think the new leadership of the Ghana News Agency has developed a clear plan for turning the organization around. Their challenge has been resourcing. What we are exploring with them now is how to get a number of state-owned enterprises or state-owned entities that regularly pay money to international organizations to promote their work, to instead contribute that same amount of money to GNA so that GNA can use it, as it were, to recapitalize and turn its operations around. This will include the Free Zones Board, the GIPC, the Ghana Exports Promotion Agency, and related agencies that usually rely on international communication platforms to promote their work. We are looking to work with them to rather channel that funding through GNA so that GNA can do that same exercise for them.
Their staff, just like many other staff at the Information Service Department and others, as captured in your report, suffering from the general unattractive conditions of service. Is there anything you can do about it, or generally public service of Ghana?
Chairman, you're talking about the Information Services Department, correct?
Yeah. ISD, all the entities under you, I see unattractive conditions of service.
So for ISD in particular, we've managed to get them a new scheme of service, which steps up their compensation and the environment within which they should be working. For GNA, I've just spoken to how we hope to get resources injected therein. GBC, I think I've spoken to it. Ghanaian Times is what we are working with their leadership on. They have had significant changes in leadership, which have made it difficult for us to get their buy-in on the proposals we have. As I've mentioned, specific to the state-owned media, we can recommend and suggest, but because of the creature that they are, we cannot, as it were, force things on them.
Chairman, I further will note that there is general lack of interest and enthusiasm in local sports, particularly football. I know you are not essentially responsible for football, but because you are, your mics are, because you are responsible for information, what is it that we can do to raise new consciousness and interest in our local sports? And what will you do as minister to enhance that?
If my memory is correct, in the UK at a point in time, the mandate of sports was commingled with, I think, media and culture. Because I think the view was that media is a good tool for promoting sports. I believe that a stronger collaboration between the promoters of sports themselves and the managers of the media enterprises can assist in bringing back the love, as it were, and showing up interest in local sports.
Yeah, in an answer to the Honorable Montaka, when he referred to the Manasseh Azure expose, and you relied on the ruling of His Lordship Datiba, if you read the ruling well, there are cautions at all times as to efforts and attempts by state institutions to emasculate the media. Harassment of the media may not necessarily be a direct harassment, but will you admit that probably those actions you considered was because of the embarrassment that was associated with the expose done by Manasseh Azure, and therefore you are not wrong in assuming that subtly you were kind of seeking to punish him for what he had done?
Chairman, far from that. I have worked at multimedia before, for close to a decade. Many of the persons involved in this enterprise are persons I have personal relationships with. Indeed, during the hearings, there will be many times that the NMC officials, when they come to the lobby, would joke that, well, perhaps this is a matter you guys can go settle, because here you are sitting and chatting. It was purely on the face of our disagreement with them that the publication they had put out did not meet the standards. And I think the ruling spoke to those specific issues where the photographs and footage did not comply with the content and the narrative that had been put on it. But beyond that, I don't think that conversations about embarrassment, etc., will be the ones that will occasion the actions that government took.
Chairman, may I require from the nominee, Ghana needs to be branded. Ghana, as a country, I've seen in your handing over notes a certain page on branding. And as we all just drive outside here, if you drive just by the United Kingdom embassy offices, you see outside it, soccer, Great Britain, innovation, Great Britain. Just as we drive, when you pass GIJ and you read to your left, that is an act of trying to sell their country. I appreciate that it will not be an individual effort. You will need to collaborate with the Ministry of Tourism, the Ministry of Communication, and others, even Ministry of Trade. I recall that the Honorable Hannah Tete at the time just Probably that's even the day we lost President Mills, if I recall, 24th July 2012. What branding plans do you have for Ghana?
Chairman, branding is a very technical area. Even the concepts to use, the ideas to use, the examples that leader cites, even if I'll hazard a guess, themes that they have come up with after extensive research and consultation. Our general idea is to have a recognizable identity for Ghana on the global stage that pushes trade, that pushes the export of services, that pushes investment attractions into the Ghanaian jurisdiction. In 2020, we had hoped to commence fully the Brand Ghana exercise until almighty COVID hit us all. Our hope will be that as we get out of this COVID wave, now that vaccinations, etc., are in the pipeline, we can get back onto it. But the idea would be to broadly outline the themes and to find the skilled people here within the Ghanaian jurisdiction who have done a lot of these campaigns for private sector to take this and lead this, including Advertising Association of Ghana, etc., so that that identity that we are looking for, we can sell on the global stage.
Do we have an advertising bill in Ghana? Advertising bill.
No, Chairman. What we
so
do
you see the streets, unregulated, district assembly, municipal and metropolitan assembly, everybody is selling something on the wall. Would you work with your collaborative ministries to give Ghana an advertising bill?
So, Chairman, in an answer to an earlier question, I mentioned that I've seen the first draft, but it was withdrawn by the AAG to tidy up. And I'll be more than happy to support them and work with the minister responsible for trade so that it sees the light of day. But, Chairman, on the south side, there are some of the other issues that the local authorities can also help regulate, including indiscriminate posting of bills, etc., or medians at the local level. That can also be handled in the interim at the local level.
Thank you. Have you visited any local FM station belonging to GBC outside Accra as minister?
Yes, Chairman. I mentioned earlier that even for the reopening of the GBC station in Yendi, I myself was the first person to go on air on that station, even after its reopening.
This probably may not be yours directly, but again, you are referred to the Central Digital Board. And you and your colleague, the Minister for Communication, if you check your records well, yes, we have built a digital infrastructure which was supposed to transit Ghana from analog radio to television. We expected that there will be improvement in the quality of radio and television. I see that the Central Digital Board, as far as I'm concerned, is not backed by any legal framework. Will you give legality to it?
As I mentioned, there are a number of residual matters, including that. I'll work with the minister responsible for communications on it.
Because, Chairman, why I raised it, at the time that we initiated the transition process following the Untitled Declaration, there was a committee. I can recall 2 or 3 names. I can't get all the names, but I recall there was a committee where National Media Commission was represented by one Banama, one Fianku representing the National Communications Authority, and one Dr. Ikarios representing GBC. Therefore, the concern that the Honorable Muntaka raised, stakeholder engagement. This is a national infrastructure. Therefore, you cannot be doing this, and I'm not saying you, without the input of the National Media Commission and the Independent Broadcasters Association. Can we be assured of that, the two of you, that you may be supervising that infrastructure for the Republic? Can you give us any assurance?
My assurance is, Chairman.
Chairman, I can understand that my colleague has been commended. Ministers for information can also be ministers for disinformation. Yours is to trust in what you are saying, to trust that President Akufo-Addo, when he says $1 million per constituency, he would honor. When he is struggling with the reality checks, do you struggle with your tongue?
Chairman, I'm not sure I got the question, but please come again.
I say when he's struggling with implementation because $1 million will now manifest about 5.8 million Ghana cedis times a year times 275. Now you as Minister for Information have a difficulty selling that. I say, does it make you struggle with your tongue?
Well, Chairman, as I mentioned earlier, I work with briefs as I receive them from across government. Leader has been very experienced in this political exercise, so he will know that you rely on the briefs that you receive to do your work. Where new circumstances are occasioned, you must get updated briefs and seek to get the answers and be able to explain them as honestly and as clearly as possible. That is the challenge of any information minister, and it's a challenge that I wake up every morning seeking to surmount.
You recall the events of 14th August 2020, Papa, you remember that?
Yes, Chairman, I do.
And you now will recall why I raised fundamental objection to your use of the language. We hold these offices in public trust. And there is a parliamentary debate, I'm holding the Hansard here, on a motion of the government of Ghana seeking to monetize its mineral royalties of up to $1 billion. Fiduciary duty. Then you sought to reduce this to a triple, $1 billion, and your debate is about an innuendo which is shared in social media. What do you have to say to this?
Chairman, as leader will recall, on that fateful evening, when his objection was raised, you were in the chair. I voluntarily sent word to you that I would like to apologize and have it expunged from the record, and you gave me leave so to do. As leader will recall, right in the division room here, when he stepped out, I approached him and expressed again my apologies to him. Because, as I argued, I had no intention of reducing the quality of the debate. Indeed, if you follow my entire debate, I had made my submissions on the substantive matter. It was in the end that my good friend George Napo from the other side is the one that I took a jest at. And right that day, I asked for it to be expunged from the records.
No,
so
I'm not talking about jabs. We all do it on the floor of Parliament. But I'm saying that the magnitude, the weight of the matter that we were debating, $1 billion to be mortgaged. You even argued, I'm still holding the Hansard, that it was not debt. But another way of debt financing, in my view, with my little finance background, I would disagree with you intellectually at that level if you say that is not debt. But whilst looking at it, I just want you to appreciate. I had some Ghanaians took me on, they took you on. Momentarily, you cannot, in public service, $1 billion, then you are talking about who does what in social media. I'm just explaining to you what my emotional offense was.
Chairman, I hear leader loud and clear, but he will recall that even on that day, he didn't have to explain it to me. But I went to him to express to him that I did not intend to derail the debate in any way. Leader has known me for many years, even before I came to this chamber, and he knows that ordinarily we would not debase a conversation of that nature. And indeed, as he mentions, the official record before him captures my submissions on the substantive matter. So, Leader, you have my assurances.
Minister for Information-Designate, what's Ghana's standing in respect of COVID asset this evening? COVID, where are we?
Leader, I've been here for a few hours. I may have to check the latest numbers. Where the numbers changed. The last time I saw was about 7,000 plus. But between then and now, it is possible that the numbers would have been refreshed on the website. And I may have to refresh my notes before I can accurately answer that question.
Is a new variant in Ghana? Can you confirm or deny?
Yes, Chairman. The Ghana Health Service has acknowledged that the new variant is in Ghana. And it has a higher rate of spread and a higher disease burden. And we're all encouraged to be more compliant of the preventive etiquette.
Now, RTI, my interest in it is as a tool and instrument to combat corruption and to enhance greater transparency and accountability in the delivery of public services and goods. Having taken off with that legislation, what are some of your constraints as Minister?
Well, Chairman, not every public institution is eager to admit RTI officers as we send them or eager to designate as we require. And that is one of our challenges. We've had instances where you post RTI officers and organizations return them under the guise of we don't have room, we don't have furniture. But we've been able to successfully post a good number of them and train the numbers as I put before you. Moving forward, Chairman, we think that time is coming for us to work on the legislative instrument that will flesh out some of the issues. The RTI Commission has made representations to us that they would want us to discuss eventually if, with your grace, I do become Minister responsible for information. For example, how the Act will apply to private sector is one of the issues that under the regulations, in accordance with Section 83(2) of the Act, we would have to look at. The question of ceding of some of the fees eventually when it comes into fruition to the RTI Commission is being discussed, possibly under the LI. Prosecution of offences by the Commission is something that we are looking at. Certification of public institutions that are RTI compliant by the Commission as well. So these are some of the areas that we are looking at moving forward in terms of the LI to close some of the gaps.
So you are providing leadership as Minister. The frontline health services the Honorable Muntaka referred to, assuming a Ghanaian citizen tomorrow wants to come under RTI to seek information, can he be assured that he will have access to that information within the remit of the legislation on RTI and our collective quest to fight corruption?
Yes, Chairman, as I mentioned earlier before your committee, already a number of people have applied under the RTI legislation and have received the information that they have requested for, and we encourage anybody who wants information to visit the public institutions. I acknowledge, however, that in these nascent days or stages, it will not be perfect from day one. But as you visit and as you draw our attention, then we can work towards tightening some of the loopholes.
I'm still referring to your handing over notes, Chairman, and I refer to what the Honorable Brian Achampong had raised, and I now see practical evidence of his concern. Establishment of 140 radio studios nationwide. What do you mean by that?
Chairman, you would have to give me the context. It's a big document.
It's your document.
I know, but if you can just help me with the context.
Okay, you want the clerk to bring it?
No, I have a copy here, so if you help me with the context.
The GSGA 2 identified issues from performance review and profile.
Chairman, which page are you referring to, sir?
It has page 33 with some deep green and light green lines. If it's in context of GBC, I understand it. But if it's radio studios, I hope I'm not confusing it for radio stations. If the studio, because I'm not aware that GBC has 140 radio stations across the country. So what is this seeking to achieve? It's Minister of Information handing over notes, volume 2020. Just this.
Yes, Chairman, and you're saying page 33?
Yes, page 33 of that. Summary of key development issues under the thematic areas of GDA 2.
Yes, Chairman, I think it's a gap analysis from the GSGDA 2 under the theme of the transparent, responsive, and accountable governance. So, for example, they've identified some of the gaps which they will propose that we are able to close. And yes, this will be under the summary of key issues identified from the Performance Review 2014 to 2017.
All right, thank you. Chairman, I should be concluding. And I'll conclude relying on a quote that the Honorable Obiamwa and my good self earlier referred to, and in your answer, you were emphatic. Yes, my understanding of the Constitution as I read it, Article 162, and I always preface it with my popular observation that your right to speak ends at my right not to listen. Therefore, moral limitations, not constitutional limitations. Now, in your answer to the Honorable Mahama,
Moral limitations.
yes, in your answer to the Honorable Mahama Ayarga earlier on, when you started, you said constitutional censorship that can send shivers to persons who may not understand what your real intent is. Because to the extent, yes, there are limitations, I've just given you one, but the likelihood of persons exercising state authority interfering with the work of the media and seeking to emasculate them in the name of national security is high. But what I would appreciate when you are responding to the Honorable Agalga, probably this is my view, you could have used the Rwandan example. You are not obliged to think the way I think anyway. You know, when you gave me a good answer to limitations based on other people's rights and freedoms. We all know what an FM radio did to the social cohesion and stability of Rwanda. Yes, there are. But he referred to Mwantambu, is that what you said? Mwantambu FM in Bimbila. Now, not you. If you have Mwantambu close for reasons of national security, and a different FM station is operating in the same Nanumba or Bimbila, then Article 296, are we exercising our discretion in a manner which is fair and in a manner which is candid? Generally, I would acknowledge that you are communicating well. It's just that it's difficult. You are like the Dagumba, they call them the Lunsi, those who, it's difficult. When a government has a bad economy, communication and speed cannot end it. So I wish you well as you prepare, and we'll see what we're able to do. And I can only thank Chairman for the opportunity. But to those other references that you say you make available to us, would appreciate every other documentation. I wish you well and thank you, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Leader.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. Honorable nominee, graphic.com.gh, that's the online portal of graphic communication, published a statement by the NDC on the 19th of January 2019 in respect of the murder of Ahmed Swale. And this is what the General Secretary is quoted as having said. A statement, quote, a statement signed and issued by the party's General Secretary, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Nketia in Accra yesterday, said, quote, this heinous crime has shaken the Ghana to the core and has potential to reverse the gains we have made in the promotion of press freedom. The NDC added its voice to the many calls by well-meaning Ghanaians on the security agencies to ensure speedy apprehension and prosecution of the perpetrators of the cowardly acts. It goes further to quote, we decry the recent spate of violent crimes resulting in the brutal murder of 5 innocent Ghanaians within the last 1 month. According to the statement, the impunity and nonchalance with which those murder has been carried out pointed to an emboldening of the criminals behind them. We have also noted a public outcry and demand for the arrest of Kennedy Ejapong, MP for Asen. Whilst
taking a serious view of his call for the assault of the late journalist and agreeing in principle with his questioning for possible involvement in this crime. We caution against the mere scapegoating of Mr. Japan as a ruse to cover up a potentially more sinister plot behind this killing, the statement said. Now, what is your reaction to the position by Honorable Johnson Esiedun Katia that Mr. Kennedy Japan should not be a scapegoat in that matter, but that the state security agencies should look at it broadly as a heinous crime and investigate same accordingly?
Chairman, as I mentioned earlier, to the extent that some conclusiveness has not been brought to this matter, the matter will be at large. And in what the Deputy Leader has read to me, it appears that the General Secretary of the NDC is suggesting that a particular angle of that conversation, which is the Canadian-Japan angle, may hold no bearing on the substantive matter, and that it may just be something that, if you follow, will deny you the opportunity to find the real culprits. But this is exactly the point I was making earlier, that then you have different people having different views on it. And that is why it's important that the state has a mechanism for doing so. Because if the General Secretary of the NDC is of the view that Mr. Kennedy Japan is not involved and that following him will cause you to miss the real matter, and other people hold other views, unless you do that proper investigation and get to the bottom, we'll all be speculating.
Chair, in an earlier question by Mr. Ablakwa, he stated, quote, that you had indicted the NDC government in your statement for having failed in its regulatory supervision of our financial sector, leading to the subsequent lockdown. Now, this position of indictment, as he quoted you to have taken, was actually a position taken by President John Dramani Mahama when he addressed us on the State of the Nation, 2016. That Bank of Ghana officials failed in its supervision of the financial sector. So I want you to clarify, were you basing your statement on that indictment by the former president of his own administration and, for that matter, the Bank of Ghana, or this is a position that you are taking to indict his government?
No, Chairman, as I think I've mentioned even earlier, I don't even speak for myself per se. I speak for the government or the administration or the state. And in my answer to his question, I mentioned that there are a number of reasons that have been explained in times past.
Now, Honorable Nominee, I asked this question with a lot of passion. And this is the third time I'm asking this to a nominee. You know, government has placed restrictions on some drugs, importation of certain drugs, and giving the space to Ghanaian pharmaceutical companies to manufacture. Yet, labels and packaging are still imported from India and China. We know you've talked about assembly press. You've talked about graphic communication and some other media outlets. Graphic communications has capacity. Assembly press has capacity. Most of our media, print media houses, depend on companies that have printing capacity to feed us with news. The Minister-Designate for Health assured this committee that he will take steps to ensure that the pharmaceuticals at least give opportunity to our local printing press. That area comes under your domain directly. Can you assure us that you will proactively work with him to ensure that our local printing press get that opportunity?
You have my assurances, Chairman.
Now, Honorable Harun Idrisu has indicated that it is very difficult to be a government communicator, and no doubt it is. We heard the hue and cry about people losing their investment. How did you see the reactions of Ghanaians to the relief of 22 billion that government injected by way of paying people who had lost their investment? How did the narrative change?
Everything that government does is subject to feedback and different perceptions. And so you cannot take it for granted that because you believe you are doing something good, that will be the end of the matter. For us, what is important is that we consistently inform and educate and respond to queries and questions that will come up. So we don't get worried about how the public sees A or B or C or X or Y or Z. Our focus is to ensure that we do education. That's it.
But were Ghanaians happy when eventually that relief came from your feedback you had?
I'm saying to you that you can't take it for granted. So what you have to do is to consistently educate and inform the public with the expectation that in the end, the majority of the people will understand the message that you are putting across. I'll give you an example.
Very well. So finally, COVID reliefs. NBSSI is on record to have disbursed 500 million cedis directly through Momo.
Chairman, this is not the first time the deputy leader. The last time you quoted 528. Why is it 500 today? Then you use it correctly. You said 500. We follow you.
The honorable leader, I have the exact figure here. 502,500,000 to 288,000 beneficiaries. I have it here. It's on their website, and I have it here. You can check MBSSI website. These monies went directly, not through any political channel. The ordinary trader who benefited, was there any means that your outfits use in measuring their joy upon receipt of these reliefs directly for their businesses? Because 500 million, by going online to fill the form and getting the alert without having to go through anybody, was really unprecedented. Was there a mechanism of measuring how good this news was to the ordinary trader at Mokola?
Well, Chairman, the research exercises we conduct, in all honesty, have not set out to get answers to that question. I'll take that as a cue, that perhaps moving forward, we should get some empirical answers to that.
I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, honorable member. We said we would try and do 3 hours. This is 4.5 hours. That's how disciplined we are with our time management. We'll try. But thank you for attending upon the House and for enduring us.
Thank you, Chairman.
You are discharged.
Thank you, Chairman.
And that has been the about 3-hour vetting of Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, the Member of Parliament for Fuasia, and also nominee for the Ministry of Information there. As I said earlier, there has been a host of topics discussed in this particular vetting, which of course included attacks on journalists and regulating the media space, essentially the ownership of media houses by political people, and of course the press freedom, Ghana's performance when it comes to press freedom. We'll take a very quick break here. We'll be returning at 7 p.m. with Joy News Prime. Aisha Ibrahim will be on by then. Do stay with us. My name is Gifty Andopia, and there is more news at myjoyonline.com.